Maybe all the single people can introduce Endgame by just throwing heart
Oh,
emojis out
yeah.
or something
That sounds
on
great.
Valentine's Day. All right,
Okay, I'll
so
join in.
are you ready, Nemono? Are you filming? All right,
Okay, all right.
so all of the single people would like to welcome you to this episode of Endgame, where we will be talking about love and intimacy in VR on Valentine's Day. Yay!
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 Thanks,
Woo!
everyone.
Yay!
Emotions.
Yay! All right.
AKA Singles Appreciation Day. Yes. Yeah,
Yay.
nice.
All right.
Okay,
From
so
some hearts, just
so
like
this is actually what we're gonna do today is kind of have a group discussion about love and relationships in VR, and this is a topic that we've kind of done before, but it was a long time ago, before a lot of people were around, and also as our community has changed and grown, we kind of want to talk to people about what their experiences with it might be, and I think we wanted to talk about some different focuses too, because Valentine's Day is a day for celebrating romance a lot of the time, but I think in VR especially, it's appropriate to focus on all different types of love. I hear a lot about people who they find friendships in VR and relationships in VR that really have a deep impact on them, whether it's romantic or not. And I think there's all sorts of connections that can be made
Yeah, and you can
as
love a
well.
friend. You can
Right,
definitely, I mean, I
right.
love my closest friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can have intimacy, although there is a different, I think there's also that kind of, there is a component of love that intimate interpersonal relationships have that might be different as well. And that's another question is like, what does that feel like for people in virtual reality and those kinds of
Right,
things?
yeah. Like what's intimate in virtual reality, because our bodies are much more abstracted. Our we're not in the same room as each other, although we kind of are. So are our experiences here, like how do they, I guess, how do they compare? And I know that they're like something that we've struggled with, just in the VR chat community, is people who come in and they feel like it's not real life; it's just a video game. Um, and I guess in desktop mode, it's hard to kind of it is hard to feel that it's real life, and it seems much more
Yeah,
like the game Second Life or something, where everything is
right,
just
right.
uh, on a screen. Although in Second Life, plenty of people get up to all sorts of things. I mean, if
Well,
you go in
that's what I
there,
was, yeah, I was gonna ask, like for you or anyone else who's played Second Life, I mean, have you experienced those close relationships in Second Life? Was it the same as VR chat or?
I mean, I guess I never got close to anybody in Second Life personally, but there was definitely a opportunity for it, right? Like you go there and there's any number of worlds that depending on what you're looking for, and some people are looking for just sexual exploration, which I think could be available in VR as well, although maybe a little bit more difficult or easier. I'm not really sure.
Hmm.
But that's teledildonics, and we've been needing to talk about that for a little
Yes.
while.
Yeah. Well, that's also, I mean, that's interesting because like what happens if you start to fall in love? I mean, I guess so we do have one couple here that I think it's awesome to Shani and Phosphoric to you guys, I mean, if you're willing to, hear your experiences and impressions.
And I
And I
think
think,
your situation has changed since we last talked to you. So Shani and Phosphoric were we talked to them at the last episode about relationships, and I think your situation in real life has changed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Our situation has changed a lot. Here, go ahead, boss. You can start.
No, I'm trying to get Mimi over here. Come on. We have an
Yeah, all three of
addition.
you.
We have an addition, and she's very shy, but it's okay. Um, I don't know. I guess what would you like to know?
Well, since
Well,
since since the last episode, we were planning on moving in together after meeting on IRC, played video games for a while, decided to do VR chat, which is why Fast Forward got VR. And now, as of August, Fast Forward and I have moved in together, and it's been great for the last 7 months. Wow.
Wow.
It's been a long time.
Has it really
Almost.
been
And were
7
you
months?
guys- No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just not a constructive comment. Go ahead and ask your question.
Well, I was just going to ask, so just to update people who might have missed it from the first episode, I guess you guys met on IRC, and did you, and it seems like most of your intimacy and interactions was in VR chat until you moved together. Is that accurate? Or can you just describe your experience of that?
Sure. So initially, obviously, it was all of our interactions were text-based, and then we moved on to video games, as Shane mentioned, and then we did actually, before I got VR, I did have VR chat relatively soon, but I was in desktop for a while. He then visited me in Nebraska, and then after that, it was more like, oh man, I miss that, like the touch, and touch is a very important part of a relationship. So having the illusion of touch, I guess, through VR was something that we could do to kind of prolong our, not really prolong, but get us through
Kind of simulate
the interim. Yeah. And then like mid last year is when we finally got me into a car and with all my stuff and moved all the way across the country, and now we're in the same house. And then since then we've had more VR people to our house, and more relationship related. We've added Mimi to our relationship, although she is still long distance at this moment. We soon, TM,
So
we will be
So just to
trying to include
clarify,
her.
for those who might not be familiar with this type of situation, the three of you are in a polyamorous arrangement where the three of you, are you in a triad where all three of you are committed to all both of the others?
I think so. Yes. I think it's very important for all of us to be in love with all of the others. Otherwise, I don't know if it would really work. I mean,
And did that develop?
It can work. In the polyamorous community, there's a few different arrangements that people can have just depending on their needs and what they want. And a triad is actually a relatively rare one, because to find three people who have chemistry together is a pretty unique and amazing thing. So I think
I'm
that's really
curious
cool.
how that happened. Like, I guess, was it in VR chat? Like, you guys started interacting, and is that kind of how? So it started with virtual intimacy, and then it led to desire for integration into the relationship outside of VR chat or something, or?
I think that's fairly accurate. Mimi is our VR partner for the moment. But I think it has led to interactions outside of VR chat. I mean, we talk almost every day. We text, we call. We try to include her in almost everything that we do, even if it's just her listening in on whatever we're doing that day via a phone call. And I think it's been working fairly well. She is shy, but I'm happy to accommodate her and help her get more comfortable with whatever we can do. So.
And is that, like, do you think that because it's in VR that it became easier to have a third person kind of assimilate into your relationship, because it's so easy to have physical touch? In a real life, it might be a lot harder for two people who are just hanging out, for a third person just to come up and like cuddle or do things like that, kind of in a public space. But here, here it seems easy. You're like, I mean, cuddling is amazing. I'm never gonna, but But yeah, do you think it became easier for that to happen in the virtual space?
I think that's a good question. I think
Yeah.
that the whole fact that you can interact with anybody in VR chat for any time of day, and since Mimi's on pretty much constantly, it makes it really easy to just be like, hey, we want to go see Mimi. Okay, boom, there you are. All right, now we can
Right.
do whatever we want.
Mm.
Yeah, so
But I think it
like a
also-
long distance relationship. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I think it also, as you were kind of alluding to, I think because it's in a virtual world, it was kind of easier than, going, us two going to bars to try to pick up a third. You know what I mean? That might have
Yeah.
been less easy or less
Less
straightforward.
accessible.
Whereas this was almost a natural inclusion. I mean, we were hanging out with her as a friend for quite a while, and through banana situations, we ended up including her in our relationship. So I
Wait,
think
are those
it's...
situations specifically with bananas, or is that just
No,
you saying-
no. Just
I
situations
mean, we are
that
talking
were
about intimacy,
bananas.
so anything's yeah, okay.
No.
I don't know. I'm just clarifying. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Well, thank you for sharing that information about your relationship. I think that's really cool. And it's cool. Like it. I think kind of it's interesting too to have I guess. I feel like the contextless of virtual worlds might also help with some of the more non-traditional relationship styles. Possibly. I mean, it kind of seems like people who are interested in variants of what is traditional are attracted to VR in general, and so that might be easier to communicate at the very least, if not to find and talk about and meet people who share your specific philosophies about the way relationships should be approached or things like that. So I think it's a cool platform to explore some of those things.
Yeah. And I see, so Alboy and Ibrana, I saw some comments. Alboy, did you have something? And then Ibrana?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just, that was more for
It was a
communication.
actual
excitement.
surprise.
Excitement,
okay.
yeah. Bananas, huh?
Bananas, yeah, okay.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah.
I was waving at Garrett, who was flying out the window.
Oh, Garrett being a distraction. I see.
Yeah.
He was
Oh,
just,
pajamas
he fell, he
there.
got stuck.
Oh, look at you.
He fell, he got stuck, and I waved at him. He waved back, and then he went.
Garrett's pajamas, because
Heart-
those are amazing.
They have hearts all over
I mean, they
them.
kind of look like
Oh, in the
rags. Love
Hmm.
rags.
Look what I do
Yeah,
when
they-
I do that.
Oh,
It's Sarah.
that's really sweet. No, I think it's
Wow.
Coro.
It is
Yeah.
Coro.
Is that
Oh,
Coro?
yeah, that's Coral. Damn, that's Coral, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's awesome. Good theme for today.
Yeah. So I think this is interesting, especially I think that if we compare like your guys' experience to something like Tinder or like the other ways that technology thus far has facilitated dating, it seems so different. Like here you have one technology where people are kind of swiping and deciding kind of a dichotomous thing where it's like I'm either going to decide to go on a date with you or meet up with you or not. And you have to decide right then and there when you're exposed to the person. And now all of a sudden it seems like virtual reality is allowing for these natural interactions. We're almost returning to technology mediated situations that are more like meeting someone at a bar or meeting someone in a public space, as opposed to these apps that kind of force you to decide based on very superficial amounts of information whether you be compatible with someone. So it seems like
Yeah.
we're going to increase. Yeah.
And I think VR facilitates intimacy so well because like touch is so easy. Like I can reach and I can touch you,
Yeah.
and it's like we can just do that casually, or we could do that in the context of intimacy. And in the virtual space, it's kind of it's very fluid. It's not it's not black and white. It's not one thing or the other. It's kind of how people define it and what people
Yeah.
want it to be, I think.
There's a reason everybody's
I'm
really into head
curious.
pats.
Ah.
Yeah, head pats are great. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like it a lot.
What
does that mean?
He's got like a thing in his wrist, and it makes it sound like he's rustling your hair.
Oh,
That's funny.
that's wonderful.
That's cool. Quaz, I saw you had a. Did you have a?
Sensory experiences.
Yes.
Oh, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Your mic is muted.
All right, you can hear me now?
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to share quickly my vision of dating in virtual reality. Right now, Tinder, for example, I see limited information indeed. And the problem that I personally have is when I see a girl, I don't know what the pitch of her voice is going to be like. I don't know how she moves. I'm not really sure what she's saying. So whenever I get a match, which isn't quite often, but if I do, I have a really hard time pretending to be interested because I know that there's a very good chance that in person I'm probably not interested. So I have a really hard time. I have a really, really hard time creating a conversation with someone through Tinder, which I haven't met yet because I have no idea if I like the person, and I don't want to spend like 2 or 3 weeks talking to the person just to find out in a real date that it's like nothing. I just can't be bothered to go and type that. So anyway, so I said I was going to keep this short. I'm sorry about that, but I do want to add what I think. What I do think is going to happen, and it's can I have like a second to explain some stuff that I wanted to come and say here? Is that okay, or do you want to move on to something else, or is that
Sure,
that's
no,
fine?
I'm curious.
All right, so I think in the past we had to get. There's something wrong with my sensors, by the way, as you can see.
Your head's also in the wall. You might want to step forward a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Wait, just a sec. Wait. All right. So what I was about to say is that in the past, people had to go and marry each other, and we couldn't travel really quickly. So you would probably marry someone that was also living in your village and someone that your parents liked. So our options were actually really limited. And then now, for example, we had Facebook and all these other kind of stuff that people could actually go and meet each other online. And cars also made it possible that we didn't have to marry people in our town anymore, but we had a much larger range. So that also causes us to have more, more options. And that's also a reason why marriages right now are like breaking up much quicker than in the past because we have so much more options. And what I think will happen in the future is that we will have self-driving cars. It's a part of this story as well. We're going to have self-driving cars, and they will be super safe probably, and they can travel at much higher speeds than we can do right now. So our range is going to increase like by a lot. We can get maybe a 300 times more potential partners because they will all be in a range within 20 minutes from us because we can travel super fast. So imagine this autonomous cars with the following thing. What I can imagine is that we can have cameras in real life that will scan our bodies from the front and the back. The cameras will also know, they will also be able to, do, how do I say this correctly? Yeah, facial expressions, exactly. I'm sorry, yeah, thank you. They will see our facial expressions, and I think that we can, at some point, a few years from now, maybe 5, 10, I don't know, I hope it's going to be that quick. But when in a few years from now, I think we can scan in our bodies, they can see our facial expressions, we can have our faces in here, and when we look inside a mirror, we can actually see ourselves real life. And what I can imagine is that we can go to these special clubs where people will go who are single or are open for meeting people. So what will happen is we can see, like, since we have this huge range in the future, we can actually go and meet people in virtual reality, see what they really, really look like. We can hear their voices. We can see how they talk. We can see how they move their bodies. and we can then, if we want to have if we are really interested in each other in a physical way, we can go to the moon and have a private conversation there and see the most beautiful things in virtual reality and have these virtual adventures. And if we then decide that we are a match, we can actually go and meet each other on like in real life. And it will be, I think we're going to have so much more choice in partners in the future because because autonomous cars and virtual reality with their real bodies inside the virtual reality. So I just wanted to tell you my vision about that.
That's
and
amazing.
I think we can have really a lot of partners in the so that will also make right now what we were taught from our parents, like most of us probably, is like, hey, yeah, we have this traditional idea that we're going to be spending our lives together with one person and we're going to get married with this one person. But I think we as a human species will probably be a lot more open in the future. I can imagine that if my life gets extended to, like, let's say 500 years, maybe I just want to spend 30 years with this one person, and then I want to say, like, hey, how about we meet in 100 years again, and then we talk about all the stuff that we've experienced, and I will always love you, but I want to be with you in 100 years again, and I want to go on my own adventure, or maybe sometimes I want to include you with my new relationships. But I think we're going to be very open because we have like a really large selection of people. So yeah, that was basically it. So thank you for your attention.
I like that. Yeah, technology facilitating all sorts of different ways to explore and ways to meet new people.
Yeah.
We're going to have virtual reality Tinder, really.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
I know some people are working on VR dating apps and stuff already, although I don't know if it's in production yet.
Well, that's exciting. Like I mean, I have a 3D scan, and I've wondered what would it be like to have like, rooms or something where people have, like, verified 3D scans or something like that, and then you can just like go on dates with them. But it's cool to think that this is going to happen within probably at most like 5 years. I mean, I think it's pretty close.
I hope so.
So, Psych, I'm curious. You do have the full body scan there. Would you, if you don't mind me getting personal, would you ever look for a partner in VR, or have you looked for a partner in VR?
I mean, I haven't specifically looked, but I mean, yeah, I think that would be a really cool experience. I mean, so my friend and I might be starting a radio show like in Nashville on the local radio, on like the Lightning 100 network, about how to use the apps to date, because like she and I have both been going on. I've probably been on like 40 or 50 dates since moving here, like blind date, like dates from the apps or whatever, like meeting up with someone. And it's like, it's very taxing, it's a lot of energy, but there's like strategies, like you minimize the cost. So you want to meet someone out at a bar right near you, and you want to just get a drink so that you can just meet them in person. And exactly what Quaz was saying, get that sense of them, how they move, how they talk, what they look like, and just kind of get a full experience of them before, and then you either click or you don't. And I think that the virtual reality would be just so amazing, because then you would be able to, yeah, meet a lot of people and interact with them and decide pretty quickly and get a sense. And you can also do it within a social context. I think that's, just how Mimi met Phosphoric and Cheney. It wasn't like they were specifically looking necessarily for someone to bring in, but it's like this, it facilitates natural interactions. And I think that's a really powerful thing.
They grew close first, and then the relationship, it developed from that. I definitely resonate with that type of thing. I'm someone who doesn't particularly like the intense focus of romance in our society and in our it's so commercialized, it's commodified, it's like, I don't know, meeting someone for the express purpose of deciding to date them doesn't feel to me like a genuine interaction. And so but one of the things I like about VR is that any interaction can be an opportunity to grow closer. I feel like I have often had trouble making friendships throughout my life, and so for me, being able to make friends and to have a place to develop relationships that don't have those specific ties is it's pretty important to me, and I also I see it being important to a lot of people, and something I noticed too is that like physical intimacy just between platonic friends can also be very close in VR. Like we've got all these guys and anime girls head patting each other and everything. Like they would never develop that behavior out in the real world where like you've got eyes watching you and you've got all these judgments and everything. But now there's all sorts of ways to express affection that aren't based on this very strict context of what's considered okay and what's considered not okay in a friendship and in a romantic relationship, and it's freed from some of those bounds. Catapult, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just like Phosphoric and Shaney, I met Moonshadow on IRC, and it made 16 years we're together February 3rd.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The thing I liked about IRC, and I'm sure that these two will be able probably kind of agree with possibly, is the thing about IRC, it's only text. So you have to be very honest with each other. And Debbie and I were very honest with each other. You know, we did send pictures of each other and whatnot, but what we said in text was we were very honest with each other and all that. That's why we're still together after 16 years. You know, there was no, we weren't trying to be somebody that we weren't.
How soon did you go to phone calls? Like from the text?
Well, the problem is with the phone calls, I was still with my ex at the time, even though we were in the process of separating and all that crap. But it just kind of worked out where I met her on IRC just as my ex and I were splitting up. But it's like I say, is the thing about having visuals for me, I think would kind of give you expectations that might not be there.
It depends on what avatar you're presenting, I guess.
Well, exactly. That's just it. You know.
Oh yeah. If it's not a 3D scan, I guess is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, holy cow! You know, I'm dating this chick that's got a horse's head. You know, it's kind of like. But Shaney, Phosphoric, I would imagine that was the same thing for you guys, like the honesty of being in the text world where you didn't have anything to touch or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. Oh, go ahead.
Well, we're probably going to say the same thing, but I think it was extremely important to be honest. I mean, we did, eventually move on to sharing pictures and phone calls, Skype calls, whatever. And then obviously we progressed from there. But the additional honesty, you can't just go, oh, well, I'm like a 6'2" bombshell or whatever. That doesn't work. As soon as you move into the next step, and then it's like, wait a second, you lied to me? That doesn't. You can't do that.
Yeah, because
for that with pictures.
Yeah, for myself and Debbie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, the other part of that is like you could, like you said, you could fake pictures. You could get stuff from online. I don't know about 16 years ago how easy that would have been, but when we were still doing IRC, Google, you could have.
Catfishing's a real thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could take someone's Facebook picture or whatever, and that was a real thing, and it happened to me once, so it was like really frustrating.
But for myself and Debbie, we got to the point where we wanted to meet each other, we wanted to be together and all that. So what ended up, she came up with the word validation. Basically, I ended up taking, when I had, I took 3 weeks of holidays in the wintertime in January, and I went out there and for this validation to see what we were feeling in the text world was going to be like that in the real world. And believe it or not, like when I got to her, it was kind of an apartment. When she was the downstairs at the street level kind of thing, because then you'd go up a flight of stairs. But anyway, when she opened the door and I met her, we hugged right away, and it was like I felt like I was just coming home from work. That's how natural it was.
Wow.
Aw.
Yeah.
You know, and we spent 10 days together. So this would have been, I believe, I went out there January 10th, so 10 days. So I come back on the 20th, 21st, and she moved out. She moved out to Calgary here, and we got together February 3rd that same year.
Oh wow.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of a couple of weeks.
Damn.
That's amazing.
But that's
saw-
that's my story. That's why when Phosphoric and Shaney mentioned IRC, that just kind of perked up my ears. I say, "Holy cow, same here!" You know.
That's cool.
Wow. And that's the most basic form of communication, text chat. And
Yeah,
yet,
yeah.
look at the power.
But the thing is, I would imagine it'd be the same thing in here, as long as you're honest and you're not trying to be somebody that you're not, because eventually it'll prove that you're not.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you're honest,
I
you
think
know.
VR, it's easy to, I don't know, I think it's easier to see somebody for who they are too. Over text you can say anything, but in VR you know all you have is your voice and your hands, and that's all you have to do, all you have to be able to express yourself with, and that can often be so revealing as to a person's personality and their nature and their character.
Agreed. It does have some advantages, but like I say, the one thing that people have to keep in mind is keep it honest. As soon as you lose that, that's it. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Toolbox.
That was my 2 cents. There's a lot of other people who want to say stuff.
And in chemistry, I see you too. Maybe Toolbox and then chemistry.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to talk about the problems that I can see rising up from romance in VR. Like yesterday, this one player was talking to me about his best friend who just found another player to be with, and that he was in love. But then he realized that this best friend was actually hooking up with a guy using a female avatar, and that's the story that I got reminded of today. That there's a lot of possibilities for say catfishing and other problems that can rise from dating in VR, especially when people don't use avatars that would tell you exactly who they are if you're really gonna be interested in them.
Well, but that's, I mean, it's such a normalized thing for, I mean, most of the female avatars in VR chat are guys wearing that female avatar, but there's no, I don't know, I don't feel like there's any particular impulsion maybe to present yourself as who you are, right? I mean, this isn't a dating app, and so we have free range of expression. I obviously don't even present myself as human, but I don't think that would mean that I'm trying to fool anybody. And I think even a male wearing a female avatar, their personality is still going to come through that interaction. And in fact, I have read on Reddit, and I've heard from friends that like they'll get attached to someone, like men who aren't necessarily interested in men will get attached to a man and a female avatar and will be okay with that, or at least like willing to kind of explore that a little bit. I don't think that's entirely uncommon. So I don't see that as such a bad thing, unless someone is being intentionally deceitful, which I don't know about that situation there, but I don't think it has to be negative.
it's like, is it exploration or is it catfishing? You know, that's the thing, and it's like it depends on what people's expectations and what the norms are in the society and
Right.
culture. So that is like the person could have thought that the other person knew the whole time or assumed that they were male and that maybe they weren't talking, and so maybe they didn't know, or yeah. So it is interesting.
Right. Or maybe they just met each other and were like just being friends, like, and then that just happened to get closer, like that. I mean, that could happen too. Like, at what point are you obligated to disclose your I don't know, your sex or your gender or whatever?
Yeah.
But that's a kind of complicated. That's going to be specific to every single situation.
It comes back to etiquette. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I see chemistry, and I also see Phil, that you have your hand up too, so we'll get to you as well.
You guys mind if I step in front here? I don't want to be in anybody's way.
You're good.
First off, I want to say I can see Toolbox's point of view with the whole catfishing thing. I even kind of thought about that once myself, and just a little bit ago, I was thinking about that while hearing Shaney and Fosforic story. I thought there were probably situations out there like that actually happen, but for me personally, I haven't seen any kind of situations like that, which brings me into my second point. I never imagined when I first started playing this game in desktop how close people could actually get. Like, and I've been on Gary's mod and other games where, you'd get on, meet friends, get close, but as far as like any kind of social platform like this, I've never been a part of that. So I had no idea that things could get this intimate, this friendly, and just so accepting as this community is. And I think that's a really, really great thing. I actually developed a crush on somebody in here, which things got settled now, and it's not so anymore. But it was actually a really surprising thing for me, because when I was in high school, that was back in 2013 when I graduated, I think. And after that point, I broke up with my current girlfriend, and I had no interest in dating. I kind of put like a block on myself because the way things ended up, it was a kind of a nasty breakup. So I just kind of thought of myself as not not really worthy of finding anyone else. I was just kind of trying to see how far I could separate myself away from everyone and not try and get close anymore. But after coming on here and seeing how close people actually get, it actually gave me hope again to try and see if I could find somebody else. And so
that's amazing.
I mean, it's like
that's great.
Shaney, like their situation, they found love online, and they developed it more here in VR chat. So it's like definitely. I mean, if some random people can find it, anyone can find it. It's definitely a possibility.
It sounds like you closed.
Good. I resonate with that story a lot, because before I got really involved in the VR community, I was going through this long period where I was intensely emotionally removed from other people, and there was like spending time with people in real life was never appealing, and exploring relationships in real life was just absolutely distasteful. I didn't like it. I didn't want it. But I spent more and more time in VR, and from the release of consumer VR to the Steam release, I just got more and more used to interacting with people in the virtual space, and then I started really making friends here and really getting close to people, and I did experience it was a transformation, especially after I got involved in ENDGAME and talking to so many people. I experienced this shift where I felt connected to people again, and I felt like I could look around at the people around me and feel like they were a part of my world and I was a part of theirs, and that the world was filled with people that I I wanted to be with and I wanted to talk to, and I wanted to explore, and so the VR community really has had that effect on me, and it has. I went from feeling nothing for people to being able to feel love again, and to feel closeness with people, and an attachment to a community, and so that's it's extremely meaningful to me for that reason.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That's, I mean, both of these stories are, you're hearing that, VR can facilitate attachment. I mean, that's what, it's like facilitating human connection in a way that no other medium can, no other technological medium, it seems, or is as strong. It can facilitate, but it seems really strong and powerful and can bring people out and release the neurotransmitters that are similar to what's released when you experience real social connection and support. And it's like it can transform us into these, other people that are social and want to connect to others. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
So I'd be interested if anybody else has had meaningful connections that they've made in VR and would like to talk about them. Or
and I know Fail was also waiting to have their hand up as well.
Fail. And then you, Cross.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were on
Yes.
the topic of VR and its connection to reality, but do you think that eventually that VR gets so developed that we'll have a disparity between each one and we treat them as separate things, so that we have double lives in the real and the virtual?
I mean, that's effectively how it is for me. I don't have any close relationships in real life. They're all in VR, and that really works for me.
Online.
I think it'll converge. Oh, yeah.
Probably.
Okay, I know.
What was your say?
I was just gonna say that I already think that for some people, I mean, they have a online persona. Maybe they're a bit more upbeat than they would be in real life, and I consider that as, at least to some degree, obviously it's case by case, but to some degree that's sort of living a double life. Like if you're online, then you act differently than you do in real life.
No, but it's so true. I mean, like, so our social context will absolutely change our behavior. I don't think that anybody who interacts like in their personal life behaves exactly the same way they act in their professional life, for instance. The context and the restrictions in in specific situations are going to mediate or moderate like the behavior that you're going to present. And so depending on how free you feel in VR.
That's sort of how I meant, but to a more extreme degree.
Yeah. Well, this is also like the gene by environment interaction. This idea that like you have a genetic predisposition to behave in a certain way, but sometimes our responses to our environment, like our underlying genetics, are only pulled out by environmental experiences. So I think that it's possible for, even if you are living this other life in virtual reality, by having the pro-social experiences and having those positive experiences, it elicits, neurobiological changes, and also elicits responses that will then carry over into the real world and affect how you go about your everyday, or if you go to a meetup with real people or something like that, it bleeds into. And I think as it gets more and more realistic, I think, and Fail's a really interesting question, I think it's going to continue to converge and basically become, especially as more friends, like once the people in real life, once you meet someone in real life and you're like, oh, just add me on VR chat, and you go home and you hop back in and they're there, it's kind of, I think it's just going to continue to converge and become meshed almost into one thing.
Boyd, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think the idea of separating the two can be kind of an artificial thing. I think a lot of people get really hung up on the fact that like the internet or VR, the metaverse, that they're like these alternate places, when I think it's better to frame it as just like a medium that you can use to communicate with people. But if you want to think about it as an alternate place and an alternate life, it's no different than like somebody having a group of friends that they go and hang out with in the evenings or at night, or somebody who has this thing where they go to these certain clubs to hang out with these certain people to do these certain things, but only on the weekends. And is that an alternate life, or is that just their life? You know, I think it's very valid if you're just who you are, wherever you are, in whatever context you are. Yes, that context might impact how you act, but that's, like you said, how all contexts work. It's all just your life, you know. But if you want to, you could do the thing where you're putting on an act and you're putting on a mask and you are performing something else, and maybe that you could say is a different life. But for me,
I mean, he could be
I'm just me wherever I am, you know. Well, that's performance art. That's a bit different. But anyway, I don't know. I think it's really cool to be able to just be yourself, and I don't know, just be yourself everywhere.
Yeah, that's why I'm me. I'm here.
Nice. Captain Maggot?
Alright, so, I don't really know about VR relationships or anything, but like you said with the two different people thing, sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
Okay.
I was in a bad spot a while back, and, I used, TF2 and the whole idea of Captain Maggot to become a better person and more outgoing, and I found it changed myself in real life. And so, not only having, of course, her voice by doing this all the time, I became more outgoing, I became more funny. In order to distance myself from simply doing a soldier impression to actually become a good person, I made the persona of Captain Maggot, and slowly the two are essentially the same, just one's more impersonal and one's more, since it's real life, personal.
Ah, that's really
I think
cool.
that's great.
Wow.
Thank you.
And I think having multiple avenues of expression can really be good in a lot of ways. Another important thing in the world, it's not just relationships with other people, it's also your relationship with yourself and how comfortable you are with yourself, and how much you want to give yourself good experiences and treat yourself right, and to have different ways to do that might be freeing in some ways that you can't have in the real world, I think is really important. And I think you'll also find more people you connect to the more that you can express who you are and find out who you are, and find and discover that without fear. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's great.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah. Over.
Oh, Claus. Yeah.
Yeah. Your question was if we had like any. Wait, could you repeat the question? I can't. Like, I know
I'd
the
like
answer,
to-
but
I'd like to hear about anything, but I was specifically looking for any personal connections you've made or close connections you've made in VR that have been impactful to you.
yeah, exactly. So what I was about to say to that was the feeling that I had myself in here with these people over here has been for me like it's nothing personal, but what I do want to say is that when I got here, I just I was home. Like right from the first time when I started speaking, I was nervous. Sometimes I still am, but when I got here, I just felt like these people over here, which have similar minds like mine, I can talk to you guys. I can be honest. I can, I don't think I will be weird because we're probably on the same level. And
We're all weird.
it's well, I guess so. But in the third episode, I tried to let you guys know that you could almost call it love, but I tried to say that I love you guys, but I I got a bit emotional on that third episode when I was trying to say that, but it's just the realization that I'm here with this group of people that I can communicate with in a way that I cannot with the people in my own environment. They're just like normal people, and they don't think about the stuff that we're talking about here. And it's for me, it's a really special, and amazing feeling. So thank you all for being here and participating in these conversations. And you all make me feel amazing, really. So thank you so much,
Aw.
guys.
Thank you, Quaz.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
really glad
sure.
we have you here.
I love it. I love to be here. I'm home. I mean, I have a good life. I'm a social person in real life. I make contacts really easily, but this is on a much deeper level than I have with most people in my real life, and that this really means a lot to me. So,
Yeah, I feel that. I can relate to that quite a bit.
Yeah. Well,
Is there any?
And also, Wald, I saw you had your hand up as well, so we'll get and yeah, maybe yeah.
I talked a little bit before, so Wald can go first.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes.
a little bit. You
Yeah,
sound
a
like
little
you're very
low.
far from your mic.
Switch to your headset mic.
Is it better now?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, sure.
Much better. A bit.
Okay, okay. I try to speak a little bit louder. Yeah, so basically for me, it's like I have literally no social life outside of the shit because I have a really high social anxiety and I can't really go outside. I faint in public and stuff like that. And yeah, so for me it's like I've met a nice small group of friends and I got really attached to them. And yeah, for me it's like the best thing that could ever like happen to me. Personally, because I can be who I am in VR chat, but I can't be it like in the real world, and that makes me really, really happy. So yeah, that I just wanted to tell that.
That
Yeah,
sounds like
that's
it's
beautiful.
a pretty powerful thing for you.
It is.
That's great.
Yeah, it really is. Yes, yes, and I appreciate everything the whole VR chat community like gave to me. Like yeah, it's really awesome. Thanks.
Can I ask you a question, Walt?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I was actually wondering, do you think like maybe in a year from now when you have like all these social interactions, like 12-month period, do you think it will help you eventually to get out on the street and you know, participate in society or like make friends in real life? Do you think it will ever have a positive effect on you in real life, or do you think you will just withdraw further and further into virtual reality, or what do you think is gonna happen?
So yeah, I mean I was playing VR shit on desktop mode for like 3 months and got my Oculus now last month, and since I got my Oculus, let me think about the phrase. Jesus, it's so hard. Sorry.
No,
Anyways,
don't worry.
since I got my Oculus, I slowly opened up in public a little bit more. So I was not able like to go to the store and buy food and stuff so easily. And now it's getting easier. It's still really, really hard for me, but it's getting easier, and it really helps like to communicate with other people, even though my English is not that awesome, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, it helps, and hopefully, like in the near future, I'm able to socialize outside of VR shit like I do in VR shit. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Psych, you've heard that story over and over in your time in VR chat, right? Like people being
Yeah.
able to improve their social anxiety. as long as people keep in mind that like everybody you're talking to is a real human being, just keep that in mind, and you'll keep getting better.
Yeah, you just talked to a group of like 35 people and with
Yeah.
great English and people were completely responsive and excited about what you're saying and touched and responding positively. And I think with enough reinforcement, it kind of builds that self-confidence of like, yeah, I mean, you're already. I think what's beautiful about VR chat is that it's like you slowly start to realize that you're already doing the things that you fear. You're already socializing in front of a big group of people right now, and it's great. And I think we're all really happy that you're contributing and enjoying it, and it's great. I think it's really beautiful to hear that. If you were at home and not having those kinds of social experiences, that the VR is allowing you to start to experience that in a safe environment in a way that feels comfortable to you, and it's like almost like a gateway to socialization in real life. And I think these are the kinds of stories that are really powerful. And some people are like, oh, they're spending all their time in VR socializing, like they're just escaping the real world and all this stuff. But no, it changes you in the real world as well, and it has a really powerful effect. And it's really great.
I think if people knew and understood like the personal connections we're making in here, I don't think they'd have that reaction because I think everybody kind of knows that our social relationships, people are what make the world meaningful in a lot of ways, and so that's what we're finding here with each other as well.
Yeah.
So thank
Zarni,
you for sharing as well, Walt.
Yes, thank you so much. This is
And yeah, Zarni.
Yeah, going back to with the question of if you found any, close connections to people in VR chat, and for private reasons, I started hanging out, or I stopped hanging out with my real life friends a couple of years back, less and less, and I started to look for different gaming communities to find more online friends, so I could, hang out with new people, and get to know different kinds of people. And I tried joining different communities, like there was this Arma 3 community because I love Arma 3, so I thought, hey, maybe I'll just find people to play Arma 3 with. And I just didn't click with them at all, and I joined different gaming communities that didn't go well at all, different, not just gaming communities, but nothing really clicked. And then I got VR, and I was looking for different social platforms. Like I found Allspace. I tried that out. Like, yeah, this is cool. And then I started look, what other kinds of stuff is there? And I found VR chats. And what's so special about this? Oh, you can make your own stuff. And that just sold me directly. And that was the main thing. I just wanted to create stuff because I like to think myself as a really creative guy. So that was everything that I just wanted out of VR chat. I just wanted to create a character and be that character, and I was fine with that. But I never thought I would end up making so many friends that I did in VR chat. And what I think is different from trying to purposely make friends with people, while I just did it by complete accident in VR chat, is the people that I see are not as abstracted like on a forum or when I'm playing games with other people. When I talk to you, Poplopo, I see your body language. If I make a joke, I see you moving around laughing, and I know that instead of someone typing in caps, ha 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 ha, that is much more endearing to me.
Yeah. Waffle.
LOL XD.
You're right. There's a much more personal touch there. There is that immediate direct contact, not obstructed by a keyboard.
So I just think that social VR is fucking great. It's so powerful, and when the masses realize that, it's gonna be a game changer, man.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that also comes with its own problems.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
That once it becomes ridiculously popular, you get more like of the hackers who go around from world to world messing with people. That'll become more prevalent once it becomes more mainstream and more popular.
We've experienced that for sure, but I think it's also just kind of telling where like those people come in and they interrupt us from making the personal connections that we want to make. Like that's what they're interrupting. That's what they're getting in the way of. And so I think it's kind of telling like that's what we want to be here for.
That's why a lot of public events have started to kind of go more private as well. Because the people that do want to be a part of them can't be without any bad people.
That's true of real world events too. You know, you don't just have free access to any old person, right? There's usually tickets or some kind of barrier.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like clubs, for example.
Yeah, and what we've been doing has worked well, I think, publicly advertising, but then going to a private room. And I know we are getting
with the group here.
It is. It has been about an hour, over an hour in, and I am. There was. Is it okay if I introduce the song?
The song? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Do it.
So Eve, do you want to describe? Eve is a composer, who wrote a song. So yeah.
I would wave if I could. Am I okay in terms of the volume?
Oh yes.
You can hear me? Okay, okay.
We can all hear you.
Move closer if you can't hear her.
Dang,
Okay.
That's meta.
It up. I can turn it up. Is this okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I'm a composer and songwriter, and I'm also Psych's mom.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
So I'm just sitting here.
Cool.
I'm sitting here listening to all of you, and I almost feel like crying. I'm so touched by what you say, and to know that Psych is going to be involved in all of this, and it is very exciting, and it's great for me to see everybody's reaction. So just wanted to say that. So I'm a songwriter, and I love to try to capture experiences in songs, and I think it might have been a couple years ago, I don't know, but I wrote a song based on my experiences in VR chat. This isn't my personal experience because I already, I have a husband and whatever, but it's about finding love in VR. So I guess, Psych, you have a way to share this with everybody?
You wrote this in just kind of on a whim, like in a few hours or something, I think, right? You just kind of threw it together.
I wrote it, and then I didn't ever really share it with anybody. I mean, I shared it with you, but I didn't really ever share it with anybody just because there wasn't the right, I don't know, I just sort of had it, in my digital drawer and didn't really share it. Exactly. And I feel like if this is about the best moment I can think of to share this, so I'm happy to do that.
All right, Zarni Whoop.
Yeah, Zarni's going to pipe the music in for us.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just stand in the middle and I will play the song. However, because of technical reasons, I can't hear the song when I'm playing it, so you guys gonna have to tell me when it's over, because I think it will loop. So
okay.
Just let me know when it's done. Okay, I'll stop playing it about now.
I was hanging around in a virtual city when I met you there You said I was pretty. We walk side by side. We fly around and even glide. We talked all night and I thought you were witty. You'd show me all around how to fly and float back down. Thought you were mine and it was a pity. You'd hold my hand and show me your powers. Our avatars would hug and we'd cuddle for hours. But soon I could see that you'd grown tired of me. You were somewhere else, building worlds filled with towers. Somehow you disappeared, and I was sad, but it was clear you were virtually gone. No more virtual flowers.
Yay!
Yay!
It's over.
Okay.
All right. All right. Awesome.
It was so weird for me.
It was
because
sad,
everybody
yeah.
was just dead silent on my
Nope.
Yeah.
Take a listen to it myself
Yeah,
later.
just message me.
Right.
Yay!
All right, fine. Yeah,
Right, there we
it
go.
was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take all of you guys' word for it. That it was great.
That was.
Yeah.
Well,
great. That was
you were nice to include it. Thank you. I can't think of a better group of people I'd rather share it with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, this has been a great episode because honestly,
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
Valentine's Day, as you know, we came in, I was like, oh, we're all, single people and stuff, but like we have each other and the community, and I
Yeah.
think that's something to celebrate on Valentine's Day. So it's pretty awesome.
I agree. I'm celebrating it. So thank you, everyone.
Yay! And now we need a photo. We need a
Yes.
photo.
Let's get a photo.
Maybe under the hearts.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, maybe we can all show hearts at the same time. Maybe we can get a nice picture out of that. But maybe the hearts
Ooh.
are gonna block our
They might-
avatars. But we
they
can
might
try
block
it.
the avatars.
Ramona, what do you think?
Yeah, we can try
What-
it.
Let's do two versions.
Where should we go for the picture?
song,
How
Eve.
about
Nice job.
the stairs?
Okay.
Yeah.
The stairs, and Namado could be up on top here.
Welcome.
Ooh,
I like
let's
that.
see. That'll work.
So go on the stairs. Okay, come on, Obama.
maybe.
Are there
You
hearts?
were dancing way like a lot, man.
Everyone can stand wherever they want. Yeah, there we go.
We need to get
Well,
Obama
we
higher.
made the picture as well.
We need to get him higher.
Man. Oh, hold on. He can
No,
be
because
I think
if we stand at the bottom of the stairs, the hearts will disappear that way. So let's stand at the.
right here. Yeah, I think this
I
is
don't know if
good.
that's gonna work.
Remember the rules,
Yeah, it's a little bit
Tall
distant.
people in the back, short people in front.
Yeah. Or on stage.
What is that?
Can you see the hearts?
The hearts might disappear. Like they
Hmm.
go into the.
Or
Hey, that's cool. Okay, it's Valentine's Day. Now I understand. Yeah, now
Tell us where to go.
yeah, wherever you
Go for
want.
it, Nami.
Go get in the picture.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
I like
Taking a
Obama in the
photo.
very back.
Taking a picture.
Obama could be in
Yeah.
the back, yeah.
There's too many
Where was a
people.
good?
I can't
Where would be a
understand
good
you.
spot?
I'm just gonna stand here.
His friend.
I picked a good spot.
Nana, could you come back to the bottom of the stairs and take a picture of us on the stairs? Would that work?
Hmm.
Oh, picture. Okay.
Might have to.
Yeah, picture.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll
All right,
give it a shot.
should we be right here or should we come down more?
Okay, Owl.
Okay.
Some people come down. Some people stay up.
Short people come
This
down.
is like a hive mind thing again.
Yeah, I know, right?
Equidistant. All right.
All right.
Yay.
We good?
Right. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yay. Yeah, thanks, Obama. Yay.
Okay, great. We did it, everyone. Thank
Good job,
you.
everyone. Thanks for sharing, everyone. That was great.
Sorry I'm late, guys. I missed the start. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I also
No
missed the
worries.
start,
Glad you
but
made
I
it.
watched it on my phone again.
Oh, cool.
You guys talked and told us all about your
Endgame
stuff.
always starts while I'm driving home.